Hello and welcome. It's time for another exciting episode of the Magnus Protocol, and this is episode 18, Solo Work. This is a really fun episode. It sets up quite a bit of things, and I think also ties back into a couple really interesting things. I was glued to my seat during this one, you know? So this episode starts with Alice running into Teddy, and it seems like, much like most of the rest of the crew that works for the OIR at this point, that Teddy's life is falling apart around him. Even though he's left, has he really left? And I think that ties into a little bit of the case that we get here, which is an Augustus case, and it's a really good one. But he can't seem to get away from the OIR. Even now, he's trying to find a job, and he's trying to find one in the same complex. And it seems like he's pretty put out by talking to Alice at first. He does warm up to her over the course of the conversation, but she gives him a jab at the end that's a little bit harsher than she probably meant for it to be, and it hits home. He's not going to message her back. He's not going to tell her what's going on. He's trying to make what seems to be, at least to me, a clean break from the OIR, and it doesn't seem like it's working. So, we'll get back into that in a little bit, because I think it's a really interesting tie-in here. The thing in this episode that made me question the most, and made me want to go back and re-listen to everything up to this point, was Sam's interaction with Lena in the break room. Because Lena acts almost robotic here of, you know, just, there was no reason for me to contact you. You were doing fine. Consider it a compliment, if you will. And then afterwards, just, I hope you have enjoyed our talk. Let me know if you have any other problems. It comes off as genuinely, like, concerned about Sam at the start, right? But then just so robotic that I'm honestly really curious if Lena is not actually just a robot, or is it that she's been so hurt over time that this is the way that she treats all of the people that work for her. Because we've seen her be more emotional, as it were, with Gwen and things like that. Is it that Lena has a robot that comes in for her some days? Or is it, going on the so hurt that we've got to this point idea, is it that instead she's seen so many of her people die that she has this very robotic approach to them until they've been around long enough? But she does still genuinely want to protect them all. She just has to keep them a little bit distant. It was really interesting. It immediately had me questioning everything I knew about Lena, and I really, really liked that part. So then the case itself, right? Also, just a little comment on there of the way Lena responded when she found out Jack's name of, oh, is that its name? Just felt really out there, right? Didn't feel human at all in a way that I really liked. Maybe Lena is also an external. But the case. So, this is an autopsy of Violet Abigail Parker by Dr. Rashid. And Dr. Rashid notes that the body's malnourished. That's going to be important for in a little bit. That it could be starvation or dehydration. Just the whole line, the single line drop of, and I hope she stays silent, is really good. But what we get here is this cadaver speaking, much like the drowned woman that Alice met, right? And it is such a cool... Oh, there's so much to break down here. So it is an idea that was put into her head as a child from her mother. And that idea that was put into her head was of an old house on Church Street, that if she went into that old house, her mother would not come find her. She would be abandoned there if she went into that house. And that idea took root inside her. That fear buried itself so deep that she rebuilt the house within herself. And it is probably a lonely situation here, right? Because of the lines at the end. But there's so much. The old house is full of spiders, of rotten wood, rusty nails, Many rooms and passageways to confuse you. So many locked doors that you might never find your way out. Thick clouds of fog. And daffodils that push into a rotted mass of yellow. I'm just saying, we've got a lot of fears caught up in here. The fear of falling when she's going up the old steps. The fear of tetanus, disease, corruption from the rusty nails. The doors that splinter as she tries to open them, which would lead me to believe either the handles are made out of wood or there are no handles. It's so evocative. It's so clever. It's so well done because you're sitting there at first going, ooh, is this like Hilltop Road? Is this a house that has a cut in reality in it? A tear that the web has reached through? Is this, there's spiders in the house. There's corruption in the house. There's spiral in the house, you know? And it's a great reminder again that all of them are tied in together at the end of the day. And I really like it, but especially what it made me think about was that, as Sam mentions, this is her greatest fear. And it's what killed her. That she was suddenly inside the house because she never really left that house, even though she never entered it, right? And there's a couple other little things here that are very important that I want to bring up. Because, again, this super evocative, super cool, but the idea that there is something on the loose that is taking these people and killing them by subjecting them to their deepest fear. And then there's a mention in here of, and how did I get here? Some figure reaching, asking questions in an alley, which calls us back all the way to the anglerfish, right? It probably wasn't the anglerfish, but it immediately made me think of the anglerfish. What I think this is I think this is the thing that came up out of the Institute. I think this could be, if that is what it is, based on what it's doing, I think this could be John. And it's showing people their worst fears. And the reason I say that is because this episode ends with Georgie Barker being introduced again, and Georgie is afraid that she's being watched. I could be very off base here. You might have heard that theory and said, oh, that's ridiculous, Trey. How could you think that? Why would you even consider that? That's dumb. No way. But what if? Because my brain immediately went, what if this is the next evolution of John's powers, showing people what they really are? Or what if this is this universe's version of John, who also wound up tied in with the eye, and who never came back from it? And it's showing people the depths of their soul and what they're most afraid of, and then making it real for them. Again, I could be very wrong. It could be, good old Jonah Magnus himself, for all I know. I don't know. But it just immediately jumped out to me as very, very interesting that the woman that drowned had some things about how it was very clearly something she was afraid of. And then this woman is terrified of this house because of her mother, right? But it doesn't matter. The fear had rooted itself in. It had become in some ways an obsession, but it was an obsession to avoid it. And because of that, she never left it, even though, again, she never entered it. And I think it's poetic, and it's powerful, and it's tragic. And we have to be careful what ideas we let fester in our brains. Because if you're like me, at this point, to borrow a phrase from the internet, we're Magnus pilled. We're stuck. It's in here, and I need to know more. I can't let it go now. It's the reason that I love Lovecraft's writing and all of the terrifying things there, is because I can't not learn more about it. I would 100% die in Magnus, in Lovecraft, in Chambers. You give me any of them, I'm a dead man. Because I'm going to read The King in Yellow. I'm going to do it. I don't care. I have to know. It's the reverse obsession, right? That she had, and it comes back to haunt her. It comes back to kill her. Last little thing here. Sam tries to tell Alice, and Alice shuts him down. It's like either it's going to make it worse for me or it's going to make me curious. And curiosity is a very bad thing. Curiosity gets you killed. And then Gwen storms out of Lena's office and starts to talk to him. It's becoming too much for her to keep inside, right? She starts to talk to him. She mentions the externals. She gives him an example about Mr. Bonzo. And Sam thinks it's hilarious. He thinks she's pulled a prank on him. He starts going, Bonzo, 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 which sets her off immediately. Alice doesn't laugh. Alice doesn't laugh. I think Alice is going to be the friend that Gwen needs, and I'm afraid that one of the two of them is going to die in the process. And maybe, like I said last time, maybe more than friends. Who knows? You know, just I've seen you in the comments, Alice and Gwen shippers. I'm not opposed to it at all. Actually, I think that it would be nice for Gwen to have somebody she could talk to that won't just, blow smoke. Lastly, Georgie's introduction. Georgie calling Celia out on the, hey, I had to go get him food. Well, there's food in the pantry. But Georgie just doubling down on the, are you a spy for the U.S. or for not the U.S. government? That my brain went straight there. That's going to get me on a list. Are you a spy for the OIR? Are you a spy for the government? Are you a spy for the Illuminati? And then there's a really interesting thing here in that the actual notes, the actual transcript has a line that Georgie doesn't say, which is, I can't be silenced now. Talking about clearly, I have things I need to share. I have the podcast, it needs to be shared, and I can't be silenced now. But that's missing from the actual dialogue, which is really interesting. I think that's an interesting cut. But either way, Georgie being here is great, wonderful, love Georgie. 100% made me more on the idea that this thing that has come out of the archives is absolutely using the power of the eye, whether it's John, whether it's an avatar, whether it's a creature, whether it's Jonah, who knows, right? But I think it's using the power of the eye, and I think it's forcing people to face their greatest fears and trapping them within it. And I'm very curious to hear what all of you think. I'm very curious to go and see what other people's thoughts are on Twitter and Reddit and things like that. I haven't checked the comments on the Patreon post yet, but I really want to go check those because I want to see what other theories there are. And maybe somebody else has a theory that you're going to put in the comments that makes me go, oh, of course, that's so much. Yes, that works so much better than mine. But I'm really curious. Let me know your thoughts. And real quick, right before we close out here, I want to give a quick shout out because there was a commenter that asked me if I would look into Malevolent. And that was, I'm going to butcher this so much. Gifbbt, Gifbbt. And so I checked it out. It's another audio drama podcast, I guess you could say, on YouTube. And it's really interesting. I'll give you a quick elevator pitch for it because I'm not trying to focus on it in this video, though when I finish the first season, I will probably do a review of it. It is a detective that wakes up and he doesn't have control of his eyes anymore. He can't see, but there's a voice in his head that does. And it's very heavily horror focused, and it is very, very interesting the way that some things are played out. So I'm liking it a lot so far. Very keen to keep listening, but Magnus will always have my heart, so don't worry there. You're allowed to love more than one horror series. If you weren't, many of us would have probably stopped at The King in Yellow. But if you've never, by the way, just throwing this out here, if you've never read The King in Yellow, the book, not the play, you can't read the play. I want to. If you've never read The King in Yellow, you probably should. I really like The King in Yellow. It influenced a lot of horror that came after it in a really, really powerful way. And yeah, anyway, I'm done talking about other stuff. This is a Magnus episode review. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. Magnus Protocol. That's all.